you don't want to stand next to me, I understand. I appreciate that. I'll stand next to you. You make me look good.
Got everybody? Okay. Good morning. My name is State Senator Vincent Hughes. I want to welcome everyone to this press event. What we are gathered here to do, as you can see, there are Democrats and Republicans standing here, city, state, and federal officials standing here, is in the context of a lot of public conversation about the election process, rigged elections, things of that nature. What we wanted to do is just gather in a bipartisan fashion and in a fashion that represents all levels of government, along with some very important civic organizations, to talk about and to make sure that the voters in Philadelphia, as we've just concluded the period for voter registration, that the voters in Philadelphia and whoever else may be watching and paying attention around the state and around the nation and in fact around the world, that the voters in Philadelphia are assured and have the utmost confidence that the things related to this election, all activities related to this upcoming election on November 8th will go smoothly. There will be no issues, there will be no problems, and that in fact, given the fact that this will be, that we anticipate a very high turnout election, that we're suggesting to those who are registered, especially new registrants, that they reach out to and engage themselves in the process before Election Day, so they can be sure where their polling place is located, so they can be sure that their new registration, or if they've moved locations, that their registration is where in the voting precinct that it is supposed to be in. Again, that full engagement beforehand will allow for a smooth election day on November 8th. In this event, this press conference right there, there's no blue and there's no red. In fact, the only thing red I have on is a cufflink, all right? There is no Democrat, there is no Republican, although there are D's and R's represented at this press conference. There's just a willingness and a desire to state to the voters in Philadelphia, and in fact, around the state and around the nation, that things will go smoothly on Election Day in our city, the birthplace of democracy, the home of this nation, that things will go smoothly on Election Day. And again, we encourage folks, especially new registrants, especially individuals who have moved from location to location in the city, changed their address, individuals who may be watching online if you are in the military, or if you require an absentee ballot, that you engage with the Commissioner's office, you engage with the Committee of 70, you engage with those who have a history of working through the election process now to make sure that in this high turnout election, and many of us up here who have been elected have been involved in high turnout elections, that you engage in the process now to make sure that your paperwork and everything is in place. With that, I'll turn the microphone over to Al Schmidt, who is a city commissioner, and noticeably to further express the nonpartisan nature of this press conference, our Republican representative on the city commissioners. Al.
Thanks. Clap for you.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. And I especially want to recognize my colleagues, City Commissioner Chairman Anthony Clarke and City Commissioner Lisa Dealey. The real threat to the integrity of elections in Philadelphia isn't voter fraud, though it does rarely occur, and it isn't even Russian hackers, though they most certainly exist. The real threat to the integrity of elections is irresponsible accusations that undermine confidence in the electoral process. Election day in Philadelphia during a presidential election year is turbulent, with more than 1 million registered voters, 8,000 election board workers, essentially volunteers, 4,000 voting machines, located at nearly 1,700 voting divisions. There is much that can and does happen. But none of what happens undermines the integrity of our elections the way those comments do. Philadelphia is uniquely positioned to confront this. We have a board of elections made up of 3 city commissioners who are accountable to the people. We have checks and balances where the minority party is represented at the commissioner level all the way down to minority party spots reserved on every election board. We conduct a thorough audit and data analysis of every election of all results and materials, far beyond what's required by law, to identify any irregularities. When irregularities do occur, we refer those cases to the district attorney for investigation and prosecution, as they have been. That should give voters more, not less, confidence in the value of their vote. Voters should have confidence that every vote will be counted and every vote counts in Philadelphia.
Go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Every vote will be counted and every vote counts. Representing and the President and CEO of the Committee of 70, representing our organizations that work closely with all of us in the electoral process, I'm going to have David Thornburg come up and speak to us right now. David?
Thank you, Senator. Committee of 70 has been around since 1904, and we've seen a few elections. This one is extraordinary and different in that, as the Senator suggested, the world's watching Philadelphia. The world and the nation are watching to see that we can, in fact, pull off an election with integrity and a high degree of confidence. We're confident that can occur, but we're also vigilant. And I think that's the proper spirit for this. And in fact, this is a time for all of us to expect more of our commissioners and the folks that works in the commissioner's office, folks that are in any way involved in elections. We have been working over the last months, fielding voters' calls, answering questions, coordinating our efforts. We will be participating in a national effort founded in the 60s in the South called the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, which on Election Day and will be sponsoring a hotline, 1-866-OUR-VOTE. So there's an outlet for folks to voice any discrepancies or any situations that they run into. But I just close in reminding us all that the true power and integrity of this process is at the ground level, at the neighborhood level. It's the thousands of people staffing election boards, working the polls. We're counting on them. We should be supporting them. But we also want to practice what I think Amtrak has been saying these last few years. If you see something, you got to say something. That is what will make this process work. So I appreciate the chance to be here and be with these fine folks in making a hugely significant point. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Representing the American Civil Liberties Union of Pennsylvania is Mary Catherine Rogers. She's the Deputy Legal Director for the ACLU of Pennsylvania. Mary?
Thank you. As mentioned, I work for the ACLU, but I am here to speak on behalf of the 866 Our Vote Coalition. We are one of the active partners in that, but we are joined by many other organizations, chiefly the League of Women Voters, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, Common Cause, and PA Voice. We are also working, coordinating very closely with the OV Cato Over Empowerment Initiative. All of this is to protect the vote, to respond before Election Day, but also on Election Day, to any questions or complaints by voters or anything that's seen out in the field. This is not a novel or new initiative. We do this every election. I've been doing this since 2006, and we put together hundreds of volunteers who are out in the field. We have lawyers standing by. There is an incredible amount of information on our website, that is 866ourvote.com. Also, an unprecedented level of information and customer service on our Department of State website, pavotes.com. We do this every year, regardless of what the hype is in the media. And what we want voters to know is there's someone to call. Give us a call, whether it's because you can't find your voting place, whether it's because you see something irregular at the polling place, you have questions beforehand. Give us a call. The toll number is up and available now. And if you're interested in volunteering for our many years old and always nonpartisan, I should mention, nonpartisan, no affiliation with any campaign ever, go to 866ourvote.com and sign up. And we hope to see every one of you at the polls on Election Day.
Thank you, Mary. We want to start at the federal level right now, someone who's been involved in a number of elections across the city for a number of years, and whose committee, I was just informed, has national responsibility for monitoring the electoral process around the nation, our own Congressman, Bob Brady. Bob?
Thank you, Senator. And I just showed the Senator what I wanted to say, and I have to rip it up. I can't say what I like to say, but that's okay because this is a nonpartisan event, and I do appreciate it. And I was really glad to see Mike Pence, who I served with, and he was the chairman, and I was a ranking member on the Small Business Committee when I first started, knowing well, to be able to say that he knows that there will be a fair and honest election in the city of Philadelphia. I'm also glad to be here with nonpartisan and partisan people behind me, the city commissioners, and naturally the Committee of 70 and the ADA, and to let every voter know, people out there, we are going to instill the integrity of this election. You know, years ago, in front of our committee, there was some kind of talk about somebody in the city of Philadelphia was had voter intimidation. And I went to that polling place, and I walked by, and the gentleman there said good morning to me. I walked through the polling place, and when I left, he said, have a nice day. So it was unfounded. And I'm sure that we've been through this many times before, and I will let you know that the city of Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania will have an above-board election process that we will follow through the letter of the law. We do get along, you know, and we do work together to make sure that every vote counts, and every vote, whoever they want to vote, he or she wants to vote, will be voted the way they want to vote, and make sure that, again, that counts. So, Senator, thank you for letting me be here, and yes, you did handcuff me nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. And you might expect that a number of us had some other kinds of things that they wanted to say about some of the national conversation that is going on about the political process in Philadelphia. But we've, done our best to try to constrain everyone and make sure we stay focused. We're in his house. This is his room. He is the president of City Council of Philadelphia. Please welcome Council President Darrell Clarke. Mr. President. You bet. Bring the council members up. Yeah, please.
Please. Thank you, Senator. So, as the Senator said, this is our house, so that gives me a little longer leash with respects to being somewhat restrained, but I have to go a little off script. First, I want to thank all of the individuals here coming to the council chambers to talk about this very, very important issue. Voting rights is so extremely important because it is the cornerstone of our democracy. So I will not talk about partisan politics in terms of Republican and Democrat, but I will talk about the guy with the funny hat, all right? So about a month ago, a little over a month ago, we had an event out in West Philadelphia, and it was for people to register. And I talked about the guy with the funny hat and him sending this very coded message about turning the clock back. And we do believe that was all about rolling back voting rights, rolling back rights of people to get the appropriate education, rolling back all sorts of rights. That's what that was about. Today, this man has thrown the code out the window. This is a clear attempt to stoke the biases of individuals across the country. When you look at the location that he has gone, in Pennsylvania as an example, where these are extremely predominantly white majority municipalities, and talking about what can happen in places like Philadelphia, a place where we all reside, and I feel real good about the integrity of our process that is clearly about stoking those biases that some may or some may not have. But the simple reality is that the citizens in Pennsylvania are good people, and they're not going to buy into that. We will have an election here. We have some of the greatest election officials in the state to make sure that the integrity of this race. But be clear, this is all about this guy with the funny hat stoking the fears of bias. And we're not going to have it. We will have the election. It will be concluded, and then we will move on to make sure that this country continues to be what it needs to be. So to those individuals who are trying to play into this, you need not come to the city of Philadelphia. We have a process that has been established probably first because we are the birthplace of the nation. So for anyone who thinks that there are going to be any kind of shenanigans, that's just not going to happen. And to the guy with the funny hat, don't bother coming back here because we will take care of our business here in the city. I want to thank all of you all for the wonderful work that you've done.
You did good.
You get a treat. You get a treat.
Needless to say, I think the council president kind of framed the argument, kind of framed the issue. There clearly is, I think, based on what we've heard, a desire, at least clearly from outside into the city, a desire to attempt to disrupt our election process on election day. As I said, most of us up here have been involved in numerous elections, low turnout elections, high turnout elections. We know how to prepare for those elections. We know how to make sure the systems are in place. If I know my history, there's lots of training that's going on right now for election day workers and folks who work the polling places, examinations of machines and equipment prior to election day. Everyone has access. We welcome folks to monitor what happens. We do not welcome folks who want to disrupt what will happen on election day. I think I can safely say that without fear of any rebuke. But that we're here to, again, assure the citizens of Philadelphia, the citizens of this state, the citizens of the nation, that the election will go smoothly here. We're here to let folks know, as we always try to do, that if you're a new registrant, if you've moved if you changed your address, if you're in the process of filing an absentee ballot, or if you're a military voter, reach out to votespa.com. Reach out to, 866ourvote.com?
That's right.
866ourvote.com. Al, the city commissioner's office has a website?
Yes.
PhiladelphiaVotes.com. PhiladelphiaVotes.com. There's tons of phone numbers, tons of people in place to answer questions, to respond to issues about new registrants or folks who have relocated. to respond to what occurs before Election Day and what will occur on Election Day. Plenty of information available. I'm going to ask, before we turn it over to questions from the press, I'm going to ask Councilwoman Cindy Bass if she would come up and she helped nudge me to make this happen, all right? And then we'll turn it over to the press. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And first of all, I'd like to thank Senator Hughes for convening us all for this very important dialogue. It really needs to be stated that as Philadelphians, we all have a very much a vested interest in making sure that this election season goes off without a hitch, that this election day is done as it is always done here in Philadelphia. As someone mentioned previously, we have these systems in place. We've had them in place for many, many years, and there is help. And we rely on our friends, our neighbors, our voters, if you see something out of place, to say something. And that is a system that has worked for us countless times. And we expect that this election will be done as every other election is done here in Philadelphia, decently, in order, and with dignity. And so, we just wanted to really stand here today and make that statement, make that pronouncement. And thank you again, Senator Hughes, for convening us all and making it clear that we will not tolerate any sort of foolishness on Election Day. And it's even insulting to suggest that Philadelphians would, as the fifth largest city in the nation, to suggest and to incite and to encourage people to come here as if we cannot or do not value this very important process in the nation's birthplace of liberty is insulting. And we intend to ensure that this election goes off without a hitch, as they always do here in the city of Philadelphia and throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. So well said. We'll open up to any questions for anyone? Yes.
I'm leaving aside the national rhetoric. Within the state of Pennsylvania, Representative Saccone has a bill that would allow people outside of Philadelphia to come be poll watchers here. I'd actually like to ask either Mr. Thornburg as the watchdog of the commission, as the minority representative on the commission, to address the idea that out-of-county poll workers, poll watchers rather than do a better job.
I'm going to turn it over to them, but Councilman Jones, did you just say City Council passed a resolution on that?
This Thursday.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I know, I was here Thursday.
Well,
Go ahead.
since it's our house, I must say it anyway. Just real quick, and I see Fred Voigt right over there, and he has done more elections than anyone else in the city of Philadelphia. And with him still in the ranks, I am confident that we will continue that tradition. Voter suppression is nothing new. A couple of elections back, they sent voter integrity officers into inner city Philadelphia. And one of the flyers that they put out the day before, which was a tactic, said that they will be checking for people who had outstanding warrants and tickets in an effort to dissuade people from voting. So this is in a long line of tradition, going back to the poll tax, going back to the grandfather clause, going back to more recent things like voter ID, and a new wrinkle on an old tactic to keep inner city African American, Latino voting down. And so you can call it another name, but a rose by any other name is still voter suppression.
David, go ahead.
You're talking about the House Bill 29 that was introduced, or reintroduced, I guess. I was up at a hearing a few weeks back where that was being considered, and A, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and B, that's just as well. And I think the word, even from around the state, other 66 counties, folks were very leery about the idea of people kind of running around the state in some seemingly unofficial fashion watching polls. Again, the integrity of this process is built from the ground up. And I think that's the way the certificates were envisioned and awarded. And frankly, if we want to open the books on the election code from 1937, we'd be all for that, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks before election is probably not the right time to do that.
And I've heard the arguments on both sides and at least understand, the perspective of both. I don't think there's any added amount of integrity to the process that can be brought by some knucklehead from Altoona coming to Philadelphia on Election Day. It makes sense that elections are local. The people in Philadelphia have to be a registered voter in Philadelphia to work as a poll watcher. You're familiar with the system. You vote here in Philadelphia. You understand how voting works. And that's a very important part of this, because one thing that makes it difficult to respond to challenges on Election Day is the echo chamber of nonsense that bounces around. I heard that somebody saw this happen some other place. So the commissioner's office has to run around to try to put out fires that aren't even there. It's like somebody pulling a bunch of different fire alarms, but there's no fire there, but you have to respond to every one of them. So it's important on Election Day that we be provided with real information, actual concerns about things that aren't going the way that they should that occur. And I don't really know that there's anything that anyone can provide from outside of Philadelphia that our more than 1 million registered voters can't provide.
I want to answer her question, please. I've been around when that election happened, when we had people from outside the counties come in on the mayor's election before Dave and before Al, and they had their blue buttons on. Remember them, the little blue pins they had? And all they did was disrupt our election process. We had to call the committee of 70 many times. We had to call the district attorney many times because they were oppressing the vote. They were oppressing the people that are coming in. For some reason, they were questioning them, which they have no right to do. They were trying to say whether or not they could vote. And, we have some seniors that, it's tough to get people out to vote. And they were, intimidating them with their little blue buttons on that they had on our mayor's election. So do we need that bill? No. All they do is come in and they upset the elections and probably oppress the vote. It's not needed. We should not have it.
Again, it should be reminded, and Commissioner Dealer just informed me that we have over 220,000 new registrations that have occurred in the city of Philadelphia, and the commissioner's offices are processing those as we speak. And so, again, we're encouraging the public service side of this conversation is encouraging folks to follow up with their registration, call the committee of 70, call the commissioner's office, 866-OurVote.com. Or 866-OUR-VOTE is the phone number. All right, that's pretty ingenious. Okay, and reach out and make sure that your registration is in place, that everything is solid, everything is secure, everything is on point. There are a number of folks who are up here who are ward leaders, dealing with the Councilwoman dealing with the very difficult process of finding polling places and having to move polling places from one site to the other, making sure they're handicapped accessible and all of that. Just to put a note in it, Council President, okay? So that disabled individuals have no problem finding a place to vote and casting their vote. So reach out and connect immediately to make sure that everything is in place. This will be a high turnout election. The work that's done before Election Day will better suit and make sure that there's a smooth process on Election Day. I'm sorry. Anyone else? Yes.
What are the differences then for voting in Altoona versus voting here? Why couldn't somebody come in, and shouldn't that be something that we fix as a state, that no matter where we live, when we move from out of one area to the other, that it's all the same?
What's unnecessary, first of all right? We've got over 1 million people here in Philadelphia that can handle that responsibility. It's not necessary. Most of the activities that occur, and any of the folks behind me can jump in, most of the activities that occur on Election Day relate directly to the knowledge of the people who live in that community, in that voting precinct. It's knowing the individuals in that neighborhood, in that community. It's making sure that there's no disruption. It's making sure that the process goes smoothly. What happens, and the Congressman related, and if I remember correctly, Congressman, that was in Mayor Street's reelection. If I remember correctly. Individuals from outside of the city came in with a specific purpose, the specific intent, attorneys or individuals who alleged that they were attorneys, suited up with little lapel pins, and they tried to disrupt the process. They tried to walk into polling places, which they're not allowed to do. They tried to question people who were standing in line. Councilman, you will remember that. They tried to do all kinds of things like that. We have enough people here in the city of Philadelphia to do that, to run this process. There's no proof of fraud. There's no proof of history of intimidation. There's no proof of improper things going on Election Day. We can take care of our business here. What we know, if I may, what we know from how voter suppression has worked over the centuries of this nation, what we know very clearly, how voter suppression has worked the centuries of this nation, that this is a continuation. House Bill 29 is a continuation of that.
But I'm not asking so much about voter suppression, I'm asking for a voter. If I'm moving in, if I'm one of these 220,000 new registrants in Philadelphia, and I came from Altoona or Scranton, and I see something completely different in Philadelphia when I vote that I didn't see before.
I'm not sure how the election process occurs in Altoona. I don't know if they have computers that they work on. Lisa, you want to speak to it? I'm sorry.
We are not, we don't have the same equipment throughout the state, so that would be one practical reason why a watcher from another part of the state would not be able to answer adequately a question that a voter may have. Also, the Pennsylvania election law, mandates that our watchers have to be registered voters from Philadelphia. And as was previously stated in a number of times, we don't really need other people to watch, because most of the problems that occur on Election Day are because of the voter is in the wrong place or is unfamiliar with the process, especially in a presidential election when we have more people voting than in a typical election. So we need people from that community, from that area, to be able to instruct the voter on where they should be, or, it's around the corner, or it's around the block, or maybe you voted here last time and you know Mary, but Mary isn't here anymore, so you get a little confused. But our voters and our election boards who make it all work on Election Day are perfectly capable of handling a transparent, well-managed Election Day.
So if I'm moving in from another place, or just use Altoona,
Ladies, next question.
They can be completely different. That's why we're asking that voter from Altoona to take a minute to visit our website at philadelphiavotes.com and ask a question and find out how to vote in Philadelphia. That's a great point, and thank you for raising it. So if you are here from out of county, please, and you're a new registered voter, please take a moment to get educated on our process, visit our website, call any of the numbers, call any of our offices. We'll be happy to help you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Pardon me? That was the Street versus Katz election. What was that 207? 2007. Re-elect? Oh, 207.
No.
203. 2003. 2003, the general election in 2003. We had to call this last question. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. We've been through high turnout elections in the past. They've essentially run flawlessly, smoothly. I don't think it's necessary in this one. Again, the statement that I think, the general statement that I think we're trying to make here is to make sure that the people in Philadelphia understand that they should have confidence in the voting that will be cast, that every vote will be counted, that they will have the opportunity to vote without any issues or problems, that there will be no disruption on Election Day, especially if they're one of these 220,000 new individuals who've registered to vote, or the thousands who may have changed their location, that they should reach out to votespa.com or 866-OUR-VOTE.com, or dial 866-OUR-VOTE. And then all of those issues, all those concerns about their new registration or change in location or where their polling place might be or what have you, all of that can be answered. We've got the Committee of 70, we've got the ACLU, we got the federal, the state, the city, the commissioners, we've got everybody here, all right? And I think everything is going to be all right, but we need to communicate that in the context of some public conversation that has occurred that has cast negative on our city, okay? And some public conversation that has occurred that is intended, we think, to disrupt what will occur on Election Day. That will not occur. Everything will be smooth, and we will assure the citizens of Philadelphia that everything will be smooth. Thank you very much.